If you do any programming in BASIC on a TI-99, well, you'll get to know the system's standard video mode pretty quick. And hopefully, you'll find a lot to like about it. Because there is a lot to like about it. Clearly TI thought so, the way they dedicated their boot screen to showing it off. It's got 15 vibrant colors. It's got enough tile patterns to create just about any scenery you might want. And it's got enough tile palettes available that you should be able to use those 15 colors pretty freely. Still, for some folks, that wasn't enough. They wanted more patterns, more palettes, and more color detail. So, today I'm looking at the software that pulled off a miracle and made that possible in BASIC on the TI-99. And that software is the missing link. TML is a massive revamp of BASIC's capabilities on the TI-99 4A that lets you do things in BASIC that, without the missing link, you could only really ever hope to do in assembly. Mainly, it brought bitmap mode to BASIC and took us to the next level in TI-99 graphics. But to get a handle on what that means and how it changes XB in a bunch of big ways, well, let's start by taking a look at how graphics work on the TI-99. When you use TI Basic or Extended Basic on a TI-99, normally your program's using a VDP mode called Graphics 1. And even when you play classic TI cartridge games, most of the time, this is the mode you're going to see. The screen's a 32 by 24 matrix of tiles in this mode. So, all in all, you've got a 256 by 192 15-color display. Plus, you've got a background layer behind that you can assign a color to as well, and up to 32 sprite layers in front of that. So on the one hand, that's not a bad set of tools from the standpoint of the year 1979 when TI introduced them to the market. But on the other hand, especially in BASIC, they do come with a few caveats. First of all, while the system's VDP does give you up to 256 unique tile patterns in this mode, well, Extended Basic only gives you 112. So on a 768 tile screen, unless you reuse tiles a lot, that won't go very far. With clever enough coding, you can do some bitmap style tricks, even in this mode. But, as you can see here, you're gonna run out of tiles sooner rather than later if you try it in Graphics 1. Your other big limitation is color. In this mode, any tile has a palette of 2 colors, and that applies to the whole 8x8 tile. So, drawing anything that doesn't really fit into a map of 8x8 boxes can raise issues. Because 8x8 boxes is what you've got. And what we call attribute clash is going to be the result if any artistic details featuring more than one color don't fit that grid. So naturally, we'd like to have more color and more patterns. In a perfect world, instead of having 112 tiles, or even 256, well, you'd really like to have exactly 3 times that. You'd want all 768 tiles you need to cover the whole screen in unique graphics. And that is what you get from bitmap mode. Enough tiles to cover the screen so every single pixel can be set independently. It's a mode that can look fantastic when used well. And most of the system's best looking games take advantage of it. So, that's great. The system supports this. And you can have unique graphics covering the whole screen if you need to. So you never have to worry about running out of pattern data. Because every tile can mind its own business. Be its own tile. Live its own life. And as fabulous as all that is, bitmap mode is even better where color's concerned. Because in Graphics 1 mode, you assign palettes to tiles in groups of 8 at a time, so that when XB gives you 112 tiles, what it's giving you in the color department is 14 different 2-color palettes to use on 8 tiles each. But in bitmap mode, those limitations go away. In Graphics 2 mode, every single strip of 8 pixels gets its own palette, meaning you can pack in way more color detail and have as many unique palettes as you like. With no worries, any given color combination is using up one of your palettes, like it does in Graphics 1. So clearly, any sane TI-99 coder is going to want access to this video mode right away. Clearly, it's the best thing going on the system, and way better than Graphics 1. So, why don't we just have bitmap mode in TI Basic straight out of the box? Well, like I said, even in Graphics 1 mode, Extended Basic can't give you all the tiles that mode can manage. And that just comes down to Extended Basic needing to use the VDP memory where you put those patterns for literally everything else it needs to do. And the bad news is, bitmap mode uses way more memory than standard mode does. Since to cover the whole screen in 3 times as many tiles as standard mode uses, well, naturally it needs 3 times the pattern memory. And where Graphics 1 mode very efficiently stores only 1 byte of palette data for every 8 tile patterns, well, bitmap mode stores a byte of palette data for all 6,144 tile segments on the screen. So we're looking at 12K of pattern and palette data a bitmap mode program wants to put in VDP. Add in a sprite attribute table and, well, there isn't really anywhere to put a basic program when all's said and done. Unless we use the 32K memory expansion. Since with the 32K, your extended basic program lives in the upper 24K of that memory expansion, and VDP is mainly just used as working memory during program execution. So that, in the end, is the key to the missing link bringing bitmap mode to basic. Things are still pretty tight. There's not much memory to spare, so you're still going to have to economize like crazy, especially on string variables. But beautiful bitmap mode graphics are available in BASIC on the TI-99, thanks to the missing link. Alright, that was a lot of talk about the nitty-gritty of bitmap mode, and not a lot of talk about the great stuff you can do with it once you have it. So, it's time we took a look at the missing link itself. What it is, and where it came from, and how we can use it in XP. And as to the what it is part, well, the missing link is originally a disk program written by Harry Wilhelm that hit the market in 1990. Dexament sold TML as the ultimate extended basic upgrade, which, well, seems fair enough. It transformed XP like nothing else before it. As a radical overhaul of XP's capabilities, it wasn't just a new development environment. It was also a new destination platform for type-ins and for any other kind of basic software that wanted bitmap graphics on the TI-99. And these days that's especially the case. Because if you're writing for the missing link today, you don't have to hope that everyone else mail-ordered a copy at some point in the early 90s. You can just package it with your program and have it auto-run off the disk. Though nowadays, if you use the missing link, it probably won't be a disk at all, with the best way to load it nowadays being the XBGEM card image. That combines the missing link with a bunch of other flavors of BASIC into one card image. So you've got your pick of just about any way to use BASIC on the TI-99. Most people are inevitably going to use it from a final GROM flash card these days. But however you use it, the missing link is going to give you the same set of cool new tricks that you can now pull off in BASIC on a TI-99. And I want to look at all of them, but first off, let's look at how you can load a full screen of bitmap data with one command. If you played any of the most impressive extended basic adventures for TI, one thing you'll probably notice is they seem to be able to set up a full screen's worth of graphics way faster than a basic program ever ought to be able to do. And the way they do that, of course, is assembly subroutines that can speed up the business of reading data from disk and writing it to screen. And seeing that kind of magic happen, well, it's only natural to want something similar in our own programs. a routine to push a full screen of graphics from disk to VDP. But this is an especially big ask in bitmap mode. Again, full bitmap mode uses a huge amount of video data, over 12K between pattern and color data for a full screen. A byte of pattern and a byte of color for each of 6,144 tile segments. So the missing link needs to be clever to make this happen in any halfway sane amount of time. But we do have examples of TI disk games that load full bitmap screens off of disk during gameplay on demand. So it's certainly possible. If Space Quest can do it, maybe the missing link can too. And the missing link does indeed manage to bring that to basic. It can load a bitmap screen in just a few seconds. And that is really, really useful. Admittedly, more for some game genres than others, but where this comes in very handy indeed is adventure games. A game like Return to Pirate's Isle usually doesn't need to animate the scenery. And even if you do want to do some animation in the way that Space Quest does, the main trick is just dumping the scenery to screen fast enough to not hold up the game in between areas. So the missing link's load P command is perfect for that. And it did get some use in this kind of way on the TI-99 game scene. Most importantly in the 1993 adventure Who's Behind the Mexican UFOs by Chris Boddenmiller, which uses TML for its bitmap graphics. The game has some great scenery going for it, and thanks to TML, it all loads pretty quick. And it all does a pretty good job of working with the weird way that paletting works in bitmap mode. See, in bitmap mode, vertically your palette can change every single line, but horizontally, it can only change every 8 pixels. So, while graphics designed for this mode do a good job of working around that, when you see a non-native image that's been converted for bitmap mode display, well, you're often going to get a streaking effect. Because attribute clash still exists here, but only horizontally. So the best bitmap art is usually going to be designed for bitmap mode natively. And one way you can design for it is with TI Artist. Very handy in tandem with the missing link, since its native format is just a VDP data dump, which the missing link can use directly with load P. The other really appealing route to generating assets these days is Tercey's Convert9918 utility. That'll convert any image to bitmap mode screen graphics and give you the dump for that. You just have to keep in mind, with bitmap mode attribute clash, things can get a bit ugly converting images not made for it. But anyway, while copying screen data from disk to VDP is extremely useful, and it genuinely is really fantastic to have, there are even more exciting things the missing link can do. Because the way I see it, it's always going to be more fun to cook up some bitmap graphics with code of your own. And one way to do that is with TML's tools for drawing lines and shapes to screen. In TI Basic or Extended Basic, drawing lines or shapes more than one tile wide just isn't a feature. You can draw lines horizontally or vertically, since all you need to do there is repeat the same pattern along a row or column. But that's all you'll get from a single command in the line drawing department. And after all, even if there were line drawing commands in BASIC, you'd run out of patterns in not too long. 112 patterns to use on 768 screen tiles just isn't a lot. So bitmap mode is a big part of why the missing link can do cool things with colored lines, or with monochrome lines, if you want to keep things simple. The missing link has both 2-color and 16-color modes, and you may want to stick with the 2-color drawing mode if you don't need the full palette, since that saves on memory in a big way. Either way though, there's some pretty cool drawing you can do even just with lines alone. This demo of a drawing of the face of Alfred E. Newman from Mad Magazine being a classic example. All done in TML basic commands, all just line drawing. It's something you just can't do in BASIC on the TI-99 without some extra help. So, while line drawing might not seem like all that exciting an idea in the broader context of 80s BASIC, it's definitely a great addition to have. And it's even cooler when you pair it with another big tool the missing link gives you for controlling what you're drawing and where. Windows that confine your drawings or your text output to areas of the display that you've assigned. Windows in the missing link are areas of the display that you've told the missing link to draw either inside of or outside of. We saw them used earlier on in Who's Behind the Mexican UFOs. You can print text inside your window and it won't affect anything outside the window. Or you can even draw a picture inside it and the drawing won't spill over. But doing the reverse of that can make sense too, since this means you can draw a text block, then draw something in the background behind it, and it won't interfere with your text. To make sure your windows have the look you want, you can pick your text style and size from a font collection that comes with the program. Back in the day, this was a 5-font collection, but these days, you get 60. So, lots of choice there. And the big bonus as far as text handling here is, of course, just that this is bitmap text. It isn't trapped in one character per tile layouts. So it can be any size and it can start anywhere, on any pixel, giving you total freedom. You can even use text windows for user input if you want to be fancy. The missing link comes with text input and output commands that cover all the usual bases. But now you can use them with the benefits of bitmap graphics in Windows. So we've talked a lot about bitmap backgrounds, and how the missing link sexes those up. But how about the sexiest of all TI-99 graphics features? And no, I'm not talking about the strip poker basic game you wrote when you were 17. No, I'm talking about hardware sprites. If there's one thing that regular TI Extended Basic actually did right from the get-go, it's gotta be sprites. You get 28 sprites, you get access to all supported sprite sizes, you get sprite auto motion, plus you can modify all their properties while they're in motion anytime you like. So, that's honestly pretty great. But even there, the missing link finds a way to give you more. First off, and least importantly, it gives you 4 more sprites than XP does, all 32 instead of 28. So that's nice, but not a game changer. Second, and way more importantly, it finds a way to deal with XP's biggest sprite limitation. In XP, you can spawn a sprite or change a sprite's direction or speed anytime you like. But coordinating that across multiple sprites is just about impossible, and that makes multi-sprite characters really unappealing, because they can't really travel in pairs. So this is a big hit to XP's sprite graphics, since layering and stacking sprites are the usual ways of making a character either large or colorful when developing for the VDP we're working with here. But you can't do those things if sprites can't move in tandem. Anyway, in the missing link, they can. So that's huge. And yes, experienced TI-99 assembly programmers can write their own sprite motion routines and make sure this sort of thing happens exactly the way they'd want. But for basic programmers, or assembly programmers who just haven't mastered sprites yet, being able to use good sprite routines without having to write them yourself is very appreciated. And one more little perk that the missing link throws in is a freeze and thaw function for your sprites. So that's really useful. You can set loose or stop your sprites when you want to, how you want to, all at once. There's no turning on and off sprite auto motion in regular XB, but there is here. So not only have we got bitmap mode, we've even got better sprite control than we had in XB. But back to bitmap considerations. There is one more tool really worth talking about that TML's bitmap mode makes possible, and that's Turtle Graphics. This is an idea you'll usually hear about in connection with the logo programming language, which, yes indeed, TI did get its own implementation of. But in TML, Turtle Graphics get taken to the limits of the TI-99. Turtle Graphics kind of combine the concepts behind drawing and sprites that we've talked about here already. It's line drawing over time, and it can stop or change direction at any time. And admittedly, Turtle Graphics might just be a cool math toy most of the time, but I think I'm fine with that. We need more cool math toys in our lives. And this one is pretty great at showing off the beauty of bitmap mode on the TI-99. As you can see here, Turtle Graphics obey window boundaries just like anything else in the missing link. So if you want to use them in a windowed way, well, you can. And I guess I just have to emphasize again, everything you've seen here is being done in Extended Basic. Quickly loading entire screens of bitmap graphics that you can design in TI Artist, then use immediately. Controlling huge numbers of sprites that can actually be moved in tandem. Using lines and shapes to draw a picture. Using windows to structure your program's graphics and text areas. And doing cool geometric drawings in Turtle Graphics. Nowadays, XBGEM is a great way to access the missing links features. And it also gives you access to a bunch of the other best basic libraries available for the TI-99 today. Most of them from Harry Wilhelm, who did us the kindness of creating so many of the tools that have dominated TI Basic development in the 2000s. It's a different world of TI Basic development these days with Harry's TML, and T40XB, and T80XB, and XB256, plus Rich Gilbertson's RXB. All appealing options for putting together something cool in BASIC on the TI-99. TI Basics come a long way since 1981. So my recommendation is that anyone interested in writing an adventure these days on the TI-99 take a good look at the Missing Link, and maybe especially its new Missing Link Graphic Adventure variant, with that being designed to use a display with 2/3 color bitmap graphics and 1/3 text. I'll have to take a look at Harry's other basic library some other time, but I wanted to start with the OG, that busted down the barriers that were keeping TI Basic coders from using bitmap mode on their TI-99. And that's the Missing Link. I seem to be on quite a basic kick right now, so, well, see you next time for more TI-99 topics, basic or otherwise, that strike me as needing our attention. If you'd like to see more of my TI-99 talk down the line, hit subscribe, and I'll try to keep it coming.